I have a challenge. I'm looking for a thought partner, someone to help me rethink. I have a big problem that I'm looking to tackle, and I need other perspective. And then you start co-creating together. That's it. That's the next step. You reach out and you tap them on the shoulder and you let them know that. And the folks who say yes will show up, and you start doing the thing. You start the rumble.
Start recording a podcast.
We hit record. And here we are.
If I think of the term thought partner, for me, I think about this as kind of an extension of my brain and my abilities to think through something, extending that out. And I can't just utilize my brain, because if I'm doing that, I'm very limited in what my output can be. But if I can extend that and I can say, hey, Paul, let me borrow some of your brain, so to speak, and look at this problem, this idea, this thing. How do you see it? Going back to the respect, going back to the genuine kind of build of our relationship, it's understanding that I can put that on the table and say, I don't have all the answers, but maybe between the two of us, we can find one. That extension, that naturalness, I think, is one of the things that builds a good thought partnership from my angle. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that.
That effort alone is an exercise, is a skill, and is the courage to reach out beyond your echo chamber. That instinct alone, even that mindset, because I will usually try to take us back to principles whenever I can, and that mindset of noticing, acknowledging, accepting, and addressing discomfort like that, or looking outside of, you said, like looking outside of like just what I know or just what my experience has been. And I imagine that if anyone were to listen to or watch this, that they might think like, well, that's great that Ed and Paul are like mutual admiration society, and they really love spending time together, and they're like a couple of guys who like hanging out. That's cool. But like, I don't have anybody like that. Or I don't know who I'd reach out to feel comfortable saying like, let's spend 20 minutes together and be thought partners for each other, to really be curious about getting out of our comfort zone, out of our echo chambers, and be curious and meet somebody in a place that's not judgmental, that's not always judging, and to listen, to honor them and to listen to their story, and B, to see how it might resonate with you. I'm thinking about the people who might be paying attention
Yeah.
and having a story in their head that they don't have anybody, but I bet they do.
Oh, yeah. And I think the first step to that is thinking about the folks that are around you, that you have a genuine interest in them being successful. I have a genuine interest in seeing you, your professional, your personal goals achieved, because we've connected. And I feel like there's an investment there, but it's not an investment in my future, in my gains. It's an investment in yours. It'll be something that drives into what we're able to do individually, but also it grows the thought partnership. It grows our time together, because then you're able to share, I had this goal, I achieved it, it was really exciting, and I'm genuinely happy for that. Not necessarily looking at, well, let's see, Paul's really successful, I wonder how I can leverage that. Maybe he can amplify my. It's not that. It's the point of, I just want you to be happy and see you grow, because that makes me feel good. Maybe that is self-serving. I don't think so, but
Well, what I hear you talking about, and I'm about to go off on a tangent, but I'm going to stay here just for a moment. What I hear you
okay.
talking about is the trust equation. And the trust equation, as I understand it, is capability, reliability, and intimacy. Like those pieces. So like, Ed, you are very capable. I see that in you. I recognize that in you. You're reliable. I have that personal experience, and I've heard from
Maybe a
others,
little
right,
too
that it's not just
reliable at
my
times when
experience.
I'm bombarding your text messages.
Yes, and we have the intimacy piece that we were just talking about, but what you're talking about now is the last part of the equation, which is that all of that data, all that information is divided by self-orientation. And the orientation isn't just orienting on the other person, though that is an option, it's a possibility. It's what's the balance? Is it just orienting on my needs and what I might benefit from? And this is where the tangent comes in,
Okay.
where I want to talk about Lizzie McGee. Lizzie McGee created a board game, and that board game was the basis for what eventually would become Monopoly.
Okay.
But on her board game, there were two tracks that could be played. There was the Monopoly track, which we've all come to know, which you win by making other people lose. And then there was a prosperity track. And on the prosperity track, you win by making sure everybody wins. And you win not by collecting the most stuff in a scarce environment. You win by making sure that everybody is in a good place by pulling people out of bankruptcy or whatever. But the reason that we don't know much about that prosperity game is because the folks who took the game didn't like the prosperity side of the board. And so they only sold Monopoly game.
They
And
took the
so
easier side, is what you're saying.
what's that?
The easier to understand side is what they took, and
Yes, I think so. I'm curious to hear what you think about it because they took that and it became Monopoly. And we all know Monopoly. We all know how to win Monopoly. A lot of families won't play Monopoly. I know people, I have friends who won't play Monopoly.
go ahead and
It
Google how to win at Monopoly, and you'll find plenty of answers.
and we we didn't really embody the prosperity side of the board, and that's what it feels like embodying that side of the board where, yeah, sure, am I looking on my journey and do I have ego intact and am I concerned with my outcomes and success, which ultimately for me personally are about joy, happiness, finding glimmers, love, kindness, seeing people. Those are my measures of success. And I wanted to elevate you and others. I'm a person of value who values all people and looks for ways to add value to them. And so I think that's what we're getting up to here. What are your thoughts as I took us off on a tangent?
No, for first of all, I love the tangent because one of the things that I try and spend time with my family doing is playing games. So we had one of those infinity game boards that has all the different games all built into it. We spend a lot of time when we get together at Thanksgiving, Christmas, etc., playing the board games because when it's on the digital platform, it's a heck of a lot easier than going and setting up a bunch of games. And one of the games we actively skip almost always is Monopoly. And so we end up with Sorry, we end up with some of the other games because you get to a point where there's a diminishing return with playing something like Monopoly with nieces and my son and other folks because it somebody eventually gets mad because you landed where they wanted to land, or they owe you money and now they're out of the game, or they've mortgaged everything they have because they have to pay your exorbitant hotel cost. All of that comes down to this sense that the competitive nature of the game does not lend itself well, I don't think, to thought partnership.
Ah,
But I think we can learn to co-compete, to work together to compete against maybe a wider angle system or a wider sense of problems that are surrounding us because there's a level of comfort and connection with a thought partnership that may not exist in a normal, hey, by the way, how's the weather there? You know, it rained the other day. There's nothing wrong with that type of communication. It's just not very overall interesting or really fruitful necessarily. but it's something that I think we can get to as we explore the term thought partners and where we can maybe help other folks identify places around them where they have a thought partnership, maybe just never thought of it that way.
Yeah, I would like to pull on a thread that I heard you say, and that's the competition thing. Something to the effect of we're not each other's competition, and that we might fare better in other competitive areas. And I will go a step further, speaking for myself, that one of the ways in which my mindset and my thinking has shifted is that the competition is with myself and not with other people. And I do know that there are people playing the Monopoly side of the board game at the same time that I'm playing prosperity. And I recognize that they're playing a different game than I am, and that is a game that people play.
Sure.
And I recognize that it is a way to approach things. Um, and so I practice getting curious and not judgmental. And I check in and I with myself and I say, they're competing against you because they are operating in a scarcity mindset with where there isn't enough for everybody. And it's important to collect more for yourself, keep more for yourself, and make sure nobody takes anything that you have. Meanwhile, while recognizing, acknowledging, accepting, and addressing, one of my frameworks that I use a lot personally, I can say that that doesn't mean have to compete against them. I'm competing against myself. Was I kind? Was I honest? Did I have integrity? Did we both get something out of it? Even if, they're trying to get more out of it,
Sure.
whatever that is. And did I operate from a place of abundance where I have a different idea from scarcity? And that is that there is enough for all boats to rise. And I view it as being on a rock climbing wall or even on a mountain hike or something where you're tethered to other people. Like you can do it yourself and you can reach the top, but it's better when you're tethered to other people.
Going back to the in this world, there's room for Hamilton and me, Aaron Burr. Great reveal.
And comes out with the first musical theater reference. I am ashamed and embarrassed.
Well, folks at home would not be putting that necessarily the money on that. So that one paid dividend.
The guy with the theater degree who centers a lot of his work around thinking like a stage director
Well, hey,
and
my background is MFA creative writing fiction. So we're not that far off there.
that's true. We probably would have had classes together.
You just went a slightly different avenue to get to where you wanted to be. I'm far less musical about it, but I do appreciate the format,
Well,
especially some of the highlights of it. So I think we've started to define what thought partner is to each of us. At
did
least
we?
at least we started to. So I'm
I don't know
curious.
what I said until you tell me what you heard. So
Well,
what have we defined?
so what I've heard is, and maybe it's just what I've heard, what I said, I don't know. An extension of yourself, a place to explore areas where there may be blind spots, there may be unconscious biases, there may be things going on that prevent you from maybe exploring those areas. That's to me part of that thought partner piece. Another part is laying out some of the traits that make this thought partnership you and I work. And I think one of the things that we're gonna find as we bring in other folks and kind of explore different thought partnerships that exist in our lives and also potentially new ones, we can identify the traits, the things that make it go well. We can probably identify some of the things that make it go poorly. I think we've started to do that with the competition aspect. I was thinking a lot lately about when would I have classified Paul and Ed's interaction as a thought partnership? And I can point back to a specific thing in my history. I was working on a presentation. The slides were good. There were images. They were the presentation that you would expect in the corporate environment, but it wasn't hitting. And I was trying to figure out what's going wrong here. And I remember reaching out to you and saying, Paul, give this a look. Let me know what you think because something's just not quite working for me. So I'd like to get your perspective. Sent you the deck, and a couple days later, you reached back out to me and you said, there's nothing wrong with the structure. What's the approach? What is it when I look at a slide and at me as the audience should be feeling? And I read that. It was a fairly short response, but it was exactly the response that I needed because I sat back and I'm miming exactly what I'm doing for those of you who are just listening. I sat back in the chair and I went, huh, I don't know. I was just putting the presentation together. I don't know what they should be thinking in this moment on this beat because it just is not the way necessarily my brain is wired in terms of putting a presentation together. It's not the first thing. I sat back and I said, I really need his perspective on more things because once that was there, it gave me a goal that was not finish the slide deck, finish the presentation. It was make sure that there is a journey throughout from the beginning to the end, and there's a reason for that person to be in the room with me, virtual or otherwise. And that made a huge difference from that point forward on how I approached connecting in a presentation or connecting in a business environment or just connecting in general. Like if I'm not providing you a sense of value, I can just send that in an email. We can delete an email. I don't have to sit through 30 minutes of somebody telling me something and I could be anywhere else. So that's my moment when I'm like, Paul, thought partner, Ed needs Paul around.
I, I I love it. Love the story, and it's so interesting because even just listening to you tell the story, and this I don't know how long ago this happened. I don't remember it specifically.
But that's it right there. It was you being you and me going, man, I need that. I need that canvas to be able to connect with you. Like that imbalance, that was that moment where it was like, this is great for me. Now, I think since then, I've figured out, hey, what can I do? How can I fill gaps for you? How can I expand your canvas? And how can we create something together that we're both look at and we're like, I'm really proud of that.
And that's just it. Like the notice that I think I heard was that you had done all this work and put it all together and reached out for clarity, for perspective, and for honest insights from somebody who does think about the people first, the who first, and the why first, right? That whole understanding, that perspective taking, and noticing that one of the things I asked about was, what do you want the audience to feel? Because I think about the audience as a director, I think about what's the
What's
takeaway
the
that we're looking for?
response?
What's the response? And yet, sometimes I can get caught up in that and spending so much time trying to behaviorally understand and think from all different perspectives versus bringing what you bring, which is that analytical, logical, sequential approach to discovery, to going out and finding out that information, to asking those questions, to getting to the point to ask those questions about something more specific. And that's where I see the contrast for thought partnership is someone who will sit beside you, challenge, clarify, challenge without competing, but challenge for their benefit, clarify, and then co-create. We make each other better by giving a little sprinkle of each of our special little flavoring versus a leader or a manager. I distinguish those two. That might be a future episode.
Oh, yeah.
They
I
are
think we
direct.
have a lot of runway there.
Yes, a lot. They are directing resources and holding you accountable to output, right? Consultant is giving solutions and possible solutions from a place of expertise. A coach is asking a lot of questions and building awareness. And when I coach people, as opposed to being a thought partner with you, I am exclusively focused on you. And it isn't about all ships rising. It's about, what are you trying to tackle today? What are the obstacles? Because the obstacle is the way. What possibilities do we have, and what's one action you can take? Versus what we just talked about, which is we can sit beside each other. And I don't know if you've heard in the neurodiversity space or the neurospicy space, as I call myself, there is a thing called body doubling, where sometimes people work better when there's another person also working, even if they're working on completely different things. And there is something about that energy. There's something about that tap on the shoulder, something about spending time together and rumbling with thoughts and concepts that I think benefits everybody. And it's not just about communicating. I'm not here just to like share any wisdom that I have or tell you about, teach you about something. It's about connecting. And everyone communicates, but few connect. And I think that's what the basis of thought partnership is about.
I think for me, it starts with that genuine feeling of I want someone else to succeed, and entering into a conversation knowing that that's my guiding principle. That's where I want to start, because that's going to leave me, instead of closed off thinking about, "Well, how do I get better?" It's, how do you get better? Because I think that's that first open road, that a sense of vulnerability, and finding that person that you can have that interest in, and then the other person has the same genuine interest back.
So for
So
those listeners, how do they find that person? I mean, they probably have them already. It's about noticing it.
hopefully it's about, we've started to at least lay some Lego bricks on the table, so to speak, as to this blue 4x2 goes with this yellow 2x4 or something along those lines.
It feels like we're putting together IKEA furniture. So
Anyone who knows me knows that putting together any kind of furniture or building something in the physical space is probably not where I succeed. But
no,
I will try. But there's a reason that many of my friends don't call me to help with their home improvement projects, because it's generally going to be them coaching me more on what not to do than being actually helpful.
that's fair. I love the idea of having takeaways and nuggets because there are fewer gaps, fewer chasms, fewer divides in need of a bridge than between knowing and doing. Well, it's like the horse that's strapped to the plastic chair picture. Have you ever seen that? Where the
No,
horse strapped to a plastic chair and it could just like leave and run away, but it just like stays there because
it doesn't know what to do with what's going on around it.
it thinks, well, it's been strapped to something, so it's supposed to stay there.
Oh, I want to kind of dig into that in a minute, because one of the things that you and I talked about is labels and whatnot. But before we do that, my first thought when you were talking is, if there was a way to just start a conversation that at least takes a step towards thought partnership with somebody, if you can think about entering into one conversation, a 10-minute conversation where you are genuinely just interested in having a conversation to celebrate someone else, or to think about someone else's success and progress and put that person first. A 10-minute them convo I think that's the first step towards establishing a thought partnership or thinking about a relationship that you have as a thought partnership.
Yeah, I like it a lot. And I like offering ways to go ahead and take action. So, what's the challenge? Choose somebody this week.
Pick someone around you. Pick someone, maybe it's you're sitting at your favorite cafe, starting a conversation, maybe even saying in the beginning, I'm interested in learning more about what you do. The interview style that I try and take, which is not focused on, I don't ask a why question when I can avoid it because it's judgmental. But instead, how are you? What's going on around you? Who's important? Those type of things that get someone else talking rather than just judging from on high. I think that's important.
I love that. And I appreciate the call out about asking why questions. They can be received with some built-in defensiveness. One of the things it also does is it centers the past. So why something, in some ways, why did you do, or why do you do this? Or it's all pulling from the past. And so when we ask who, what, when, where, how, there is a way it can be framed for the future. Not that I suppose someone could frame why for going forward.
Yeah, I'm sure it can be done. It's a challenge, but at the same time, there's a different set of emotions that come with why versus the exploratory questions that you mentioned a moment ago.
So what kind of questions? So we invite. So you talked about the person in the coffee shop that you see, you admire, or it's someone that you admire in the way that they show up on social media, the way that they show up in posts or journals that they put out, or their blog, or
Yeah.
whatever it is that draws your interest, especially when it's not just echoing what you've already got going on, right? It's widening the frame, widening the lens, broadening the perspectives, that search for another set of eyes that aren't just going to say like, chunk, yep, got that. Like we are fully aligned. I have no information to add to this, or no other perspective. So it's one
That
of those.
that full alignment is the problem, I think.
Tell
And
me
it
more.
kind of goes through what I want to explore in this series with you. It's something that I've been kind of playing with a lot lately as I'm thinking it's this idea of labels and defining words. We define ourselves and the way we let others define ourselves and the way we subscribe to others defining ourselves all play a huge role in what creative or other output that we have. So I don't know if you want to get into this space now or at least touch on it. I think we can
Mhm.
safely with this, knowing that this might be an entire arc of episodes in the future. But
Well, yeah, because you're describing the Johari window, I think, if I'm understanding you correctly.
so take us through that
The
if you
Johari
wouldn't
window.
mind summarizing.
Sure, I can try to do that. Um, Let me just get it in front of me so I
Yeah,
can
no
make
problem.
sure that I. Are you familiar with the Johari window?
I am, but others may not be.
Excellent. So
You can
Johari window,
Google it, but
another
instead
four
I'll follow it.
quadrant framework. We love frameworks, but there is one thing I want to call out here as I'm bringing up the Johari window, because it's just a method. It's just a way. It's a tool that I use when I think about these types of things, and getting at what you're getting at. It's something that has come up for me that I noticed that I've used. However, the methods are many, but the principles are few. There's tons of methods. There's lots of ways that folks can go about it, because the Johari window is another four quadrant exercise, right? And it's about understanding
Self and others, right?
huh?
If you break it down, it's self and others.
How you see yourself, how others see you, where there's, what you can see of what you see of others, what others see that you don't see, what's unknown, and then there's the arena. And the arena is the quadrant where that rumbling happens, where we start to pull in it. We want to expand the arena to understand more about the way we see ourselves, the way others see us, what the delta is between those things. And that's the work.
That is what we are exploring, you and I together. And when we
Yes.
bring in people, we're bringing them into our arena to battle against a foe together and create something to do that. Like, apparently, I've watched Gladiator too often, but
Right? I know. I know. Or it's a way that you can continue to learn more things that both you know and everyone else knows in that space, in that arena, and that arena will draw and attract more to. This is the abundance piece. You have that story in your head about yourself, but other people don't see that from you either. And doing that work. And so much of it is about the self reflection. And that's the start here. It starts with the thing that a lot of people skip when it comes to development, when it comes to learning, and that's self reflection. A little bit of navel gazing, belly button gazing, a little bit of like understanding self and empathizing with others. And so it starts there. And then the action becomes reach out and invite. Once you do that, you're not in control of it anymore, which is where I think a lot of the fear comes from. People are trying to control situations. I don't know anything about that. I don't try to control anything.
well,
That's
and
that's facetious.
you and I talked about this a little bit last week when we were putting the idea for this together. And I looked at where I am now versus where I was a year ago versus where I was 5 years ago, et cetera. The one of the main differences is I took the time to put a few words down as defining labels for myself. And I
Okay.
picked creator, presenter, storyteller, thought partner. And I put those down kind of like as a guiding direction, a rails, so to speak, to keep me from going off and doing all the things, which I kind of still am doing, but at least I'm doing them within guidelines. And that helped me really focus in on what I see myself as. And am I doing things in terms of actual behavior that actually connects back to those things? And I can say, creator, well, I've started messing around with and trying to figure out YouTube, for instance, or figure out how to put the things that I do in terms of my presentation skills and all of these different areas into a way that other people could A, be interested in, and B, learn something from. And I think through all of those labels, presenters, storyteller, and thought partner helped me focus on the projects I want to say yes to, the things I want to do. Case in point, I decided a year ago, hey, or actually a year and a half ago, I want to launch a portfolio website. I went on early August in 2024 and I said, oh, my domain's available. Now I have to do this because my domain's available. And how often does that happen? And so I sat on that though for a year thinking, what am I going to do with this? What am I going to do with it? Well, when I put myself labels in that I wanted, that I connect with, that I see myself as, creators on that list, storytellers on that list, presenters on that list, thought partner, all of that, it starts with a platform and having a snapshot of how I see myself for other people to interact with that. I didn't know anything about building a website, but you know what? I went, well, I can figure it out. And if I can't figure out, I can find it on YouTube. I can find it on Google. I can figure out how to solve these problems. Now I have a website. It's a sense of evolution, and it wouldn't have been possible without me sitting back and saying, these labels are how I see myself, and I need to live these labels, not just have these labels.
And one of the labels is thought partner. And one of the words in that label is partner. And everything you described that you did leading up to this time, you did by yourself.
True.
You went and learned this thing. You went and got this knowledge. You got your domain. You made the decks. You did all that yourself. And so the challenge becomes the stretch into, well, if I'm going to say I'm a thought partner, I've got to be a partner. That
Exactly.
is not something I can do myself. And
Nope.
so that's the wisdom. And so as you're deciding on your thought partner, who is the person who will help you rethink? I love Adam Grant. I will call out my favorite mm, folks that I follow. Adam Grant has a podcast, I believe, called Rethinking. And I think about that. So when seeking out your partner, because you can't do this part alone,
Imagine that.
uh, find someone who will help you rethink. And then, so that's it. What's the challenge? What are you challenging yourself to do? And then when you do, the next principle that I think about, clarify, is clarifying the biggest problem. What's the thing I'm trying to overcome? What's the thing I'm trying to do? Because that sharpens it. It's not just words, but it's motives. And then when you get together and you establish those things, I have a challenge. I'm looking for a thought partner, someone to help me rethink. I have a big problem that I'm looking to tackle, and I need other perspective. And then you start co-creating together. That's it. That's the next step. You reach out and you tap them on the shoulder and you let them know that. And the folks who say yes will show up, and you start doing the thing. You start the rumble.
Start recording a podcast.
We hit record. And here we are. And so can you be.
I think that's a fantastic place to think about moving this project forward. We've hit record. For me, the next thing is, how do we find voices and folks that we can bring into this network and expand?
If we're going to model that, then we do it by reaching out to folks that we admire, that we see them doing something that we would like more of. Not that we need to do it, not that we need to compete against them, not that we need to add it to our portfolio, but to understand their perspective, their point of view, help us think differently, rethink. I want to hear from people's experiences that this isn't something that they're pulled to or drawn to, and what they learned about themselves.
That leaves me with a strong sense of not only clarity, but also purpose and interest in exploring these spaces with you, walking through these corridors that maybe previously were completely pitch black. And now somebody has a little cell phone light that I can see down there reflected in something else. And I'm like, I got to go see what that is. And that's what I'm excited to do. Let's pull somebody in.
Yeah.
Let's co-create. Let's do something. And is it going to always work? No. Does it have to? No. And for me, that's where I am.
I love that failure immunity, friend. And let's go ahead and find some unknown, uncharted areas and find some folks who maybe have a lantern or a flashlight and shed some light on some of those areas. I would love to do that with you. And I think that in future episodes, when we have other folks here, it's just going to continue to add. Let's do it
Like,
together. Do it worried, do it scared. This is for me, it's not for you. Paul, do it worried, do it scared. It's okay to be seen. And we will all be better for it.
I'm going to do the same thing. Ed, thought partner, that partner piece is important and you can't just do it yourself. That was one of my number one takeaways from our conversation today.
Fantastic.
All right. Thank you, my friend.
Thank you. I want to make sure that I give a genuine, authentic sign off I say this at the end of workshops, at the end of sessions, at the end of one-on-one coaching. I say it when a family member leaves my house and is going out into the big world. Take care of yourself and each other.